Hello everyone. Now, when we talk about cricket and sports, we usually talk about the game, the players, the techniques, the tactics, the rivalries, the tournaments, and of course the results. But behind every match, every player fine or ban, every sponsorship contract, and every billion-dollar broadcast deal, there is something very powerful at work behind the scenes. It's the law, sports law. Now today, I want to talk about this. Sports law, what it really is, the subject it covers, how it applies to sports, and why sports law is now one of the most important and fastest growing areas of legal practice in the world. Okay, so what exactly is sports law? Now, sports law is not one single law or a book of rules. Sports law is simply the application of all the normal established legal principles to sport. So remember, it's the application of normal legal principles to sport. Now, global sport is of course a global business, a huge employer. It's a sponsorship, broadcast and digital product. And it's a regulated international industry, such as any other industry like trading industries, aviation, shipping. Now, once a sport reaches that level, you need to have contracts in place, rules and regulations, discipline, integrity systems, and dispute resolution mechanisms. That entire legal ecosystem is what we call sports law. So let's take cricket as an example and why cricket needs sports law. Now, cricket today involves the ICC, national federations such as the English Cricket Board, franchise leagues such as the IPL, players and their sports agents, broadcasters and sponsors, state associations and cricket venues, and so on. Now, all these groups have different and sometimes competing interests, and without sports law, contracts would collapse. Sponsors, broadcasters, and other stakeholders would just run away. Maintaining integrity and discipline would be difficult. Corruption may flourish, and disputes would end up in normal courts, sometimes dragging on for months, maybe years. Sports law allows cricket to regulate itself while still following the principles of fairness and justice. Now, what are some of the main subjects within sports law? Number one, governance and regulatory law. Now, this looks at how sports bodies are run, and it covers their constitution and statutes, their decision-making powers, their elections, and governance disputes. Essentially, how you run a sport nationally or internationally from the top. Now, in cricket, this applies to the ICC and its authority. The ICC also has limits on its authority. How national boards are governed, settling internal disputes, and many governance-related disputes eventually end up at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which is also known as CAS. We'll mention CAS a little later. Number two, contract law. Now, this covers players' contracts, franchise league agreements, sponsorship and endorsement deals, broadcast deals, event host agreements, event participation agreements, venue agreements, and so on. In cricket, the players' central contracts and the contracts between, for example, JioStar and the ICC all fall under this area of contract law. Thirdly, employment and labor laws. Now, this focuses on whether players are employees or independent contractors. Working and playing conditions, settling payment disputes, collective representation of the players, for example, by the World Cricketers Association, and so on. Now, this is increasingly important as players continue to assert increasingly stronger legal rights and are demanding higher fees and salaries. And that, for a number of reasons, is outside the scope of today's discussion. Okay, fourthly, discipline and code of conduct law. Now, this deals with player fines, player suspensions and bans, players' on-field behavior, breaches of the code of conduct. Now, in cricket, issues like ball tampering, over-rate penalties, bad behavior and code of conduct violations are all handled through a structured legal process. That also includes formal hearings and appeals. Fifthly, integrity, anti-corruption and betting laws. Now, this protects a sport such as cricket from corruption. It covers match fixing investigations, betting violations, reporting obligations when approached. The ICC's anti-corruption unit operates within this legal framework to protect the game's credibility. Number 6, anti-doping laws. Now, anti-doping is one of the most litigated areas of sports law. Cricket follows the World Anti-Doping Code, the WADA code, and disputes can be appealed all the way to CAS. Now, some of the famous doping CAS cases in world sport include the Lance Armstrong case in cycling, very famous, the Russian state-sponsored doping scandal, and the Sun Yang swimming case. And some of these cases have shaped global sports law standards. Number 7, arbitration and dispute resolution. Now, professional sport tries to avoid normal courts wherever possible, which is absolutely right, and we'll talk about this. Instead, disputes are resolved through internal tribunals, independent panels, and ultimately the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which is based in Lausanne in Switzerland. Just think of CAS as the Supreme Court of world sport. Okay? Number 8, commercial media and broadcasting laws. Now, this governs the sport's financial ecosystems and big money matters. It includes broadcast right agreements, streaming agreements, digital agreements, sponsorship, and merchandising. You know, the billions generated by the ICC and the BCCI broadcast and sponsorship deals are all governed by this area of sports law, commercial law. Number 9, intellectual property, IP, and image rights. Now, this covers players' image rights, team logos and trademarks, the commercial use of players' names and likenesses, for example, in sports video games. This is becoming a very, very important area. Number 10, safety and risk and events law. And this involves stadium safety rules, crowd management and traffic control, liability and insurances, ticketing disputes, and every major cricket tournament, such as the Cricket World Cup, has to have this international legal framework in place. Okay, so that covers an outline of some areas of normal law that impacts sports. Now, long before CAS became sports' ultimate legal authority, sports disputes often ended up in ordinary civil courts. And one of the most famous examples in cricket is the Imran Khan court case involving Ian Botham and Alan Lamb that was heard in England back in 1996. Now, at that time, it was in many ways the first of its kind. It was extremely high profile, widely covered by the media, and followed very closely by sports fans. And witnesses included people such as Mike Atherton, David Gower, Jeffrey Boycott. My goodness, it was extremely high profile, and it went on for 2 weeks. Now, what made this case so important was that it involved reputation and public statements. It showed that cricketers had enforceable legal rights, and it highlighted the risks of relying on normal courts because it became quite a very expensive media circus at the time. And cases like this are part of the reason sport later moved towards specialized arbitration rather than public courtroom battles. Now, in the modern era, some high-profile cases that have gone to CAS include major doping appeals, such as the case involving Maria Sharapova, governance disputes, such as the banning of Russian athletes by the International Skiing Federation, and financial regulation cases, such as Man City versus UEFA. Now, these cases demonstrate how important CAS has become to maintaining the integrity of world sport. Now, I'll also mention some prominent law firms behind these cases, as sports law is now handled by elite firms such as Bird & Bird, CMS Law, Dentons, Morgan Sports Law, Sheridan's. These firms handle CAS litigation, governance matters, and major commercial disputes. And of course, look, they're not cheap. They are very expensive. And this is now a very, very specialized area of law. Now let's talk a little bit about sports law as a career, as sports law is now a recognized area of legal practice. And many law students now study sports law modules, take LLMs in sports law, and specialize in sports arbitration and integrity work. And also importantly, international sports federations now have full-time legal departments. For example, the ICC employs a dedicated in-house legal team of around 5 highly qualified sports lawyers working full-time on governance, integrity, contracts, events, and on disputes. So sports law is no longer just a niche, it's a professional, global, and a highly competitive area of law. Okay, so in conclusion, cricket and other sports is obviously played on the pitches and the playing fields, and professional sport is highly emotional and competitive. But having said that, today, professional sport is governed by the law. And so remember that behind every event, every player fine, suspension or ban, and every broadcast contract, sports law is working quietly in the background and is holding the entire system together and preventing it from descending into chaos and in the civil courts. This legal framework is now a critical part of the entire sporting ecosystem. Okay? Till next time.